She should eat somewhere else. Places like this aren't made for cripples. The words cut through Murphy's diner like a blade. 3 bikers in leather vests surrounded the woman on crutches, laughing as they knocked her to the ground. Coffee splattered. Dishes shattered. Nobody helped her. But the boy by the window saw her dog tags. His father saw them too. And exactly 47 minutes later, the thundering sound of rotor blades would shake the entire building. What happened next would teach this small Texas town why you never, ever mess with a night stalker. If you believe respect should never depend on appearances, comment respect to stand with every veteran who's ever been overlooked, and subscribe for more stories that honor quiet courage. The morning sun barely touched the windows of Murphy's diner when Sarah Mitchell pushed through the glass door, her crutches clicking against the worn tile floor. At 50 years old, she moved with the careful balance of someone who had learned to navigate the world differently. Her left leg, injured in Afghanistan 12 years ago, still gave her trouble on cold mornings like this. Sarah wore a simple gray sweatshirt and jeans, her army dog tags tucked beneath the fabric. She didn't advertise her service anymore. 23 years in the military had taught her that sometimes it was better to blend in. She just wanted her morning coffee and eggs before heading to her job at the local hardware store. The diner was mostly empty. A few truckers sat at the counter, and an elderly couple shared pancakes in the corner booth. Sarah chose a table near the window, carefully propping her crutches against the wall. The waitress, a young woman named Amy, brought her coffee without being asked. "The usual, Sarah?" Amy smiled warmly. "Please. And make the eggs over easy today." Sarah had been coming here for 3 years, ever since she moved to this small Texas town. It was quiet, predictable, and nobody asked too many questions about her limp or the scars on her hands. That's how she liked it. The peace shattered when the door burst open. 3 men in leather vests stomped in, their heavy boots announcing their arrival. They wore patches identifying them as members of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club. The biggest one, a man with a thick beard and arms covered in tattoos, scanned the diner like he owned it. "Well, look what we got here," he announced loudly. "Bunch of sheep having their morning feed." His friends laughed. One was skinny with greasy hair pulled back in a ponytail. The other was stocky with a shaved head and mean eyes. They took the table right next to Sarah, chairs scraping loudly against the floor. Sarah kept her eyes on her coffee cup. She'd dealt with bullies before, in boot camp, in combat zones, in VA hospitals. The best strategy was usually to ignore them until they got bored and moved on. "Hey, Gimpy," the bearded one called out. "Yeah, you with the sticks. This is our table. You need to move." Sarah looked up slowly. "I was here first. There are plenty of other tables." The skinny one snorted. "Did you hear that, Bull? She thinks she gets to tell us what to do." Bull, apparently the bearded one's name, stood up and walked over to Sarah's table. He loomed over her, close enough that she could smell the stale beer on his breath. "I don't think you heard me right," Bull said. "This whole place is ours when we're here. And broken people like you? You make the place look bad. Bad for business." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I'm not moving." "Oh, tough girl, huh?" The bald one joined them. "What are you gonna do, hit us with your crutches?" Amy appeared, trying to defuse the situation. "Guys, please. There's no need for this. I can get you a table over." "Shut up," Bull snapped at her. Amy stepped back, fear flashing across her face. Sarah started to stand, reaching for her crutches. She wasn't running, she just wanted to leave before this escalated. But Bull grabbed one of her crutches and yanked it away. "Where you going, Gimpy? We're just having a conversation." "Give it back," Sarah said evenly. "Or what?" Bull tossed the crutch to his skinny friend, who caught it with a laugh. "You gonna hop after it?" The other diners were watching now, but no one moved to help. The truckers stared into their coffee. The elderly couple looked away. Sarah recognized the look. People who didn't want trouble, who figured it wasn't their problem. Sarah tried to balance on one crutch, but the bald biker kicked it out from under her. She fell hard, her bad leg twisting as she hit the floor. Pain shot through her hip and knee. Her coffee mug shattered beside her, brown liquid spreading across the tiles. The bikers laughed. Bull stood over her, shaking his head. "See? This is why they shouldn't let cripples out in public. You're just a burden on everyone else." Sarah pushed herself up on her elbows, breathing through the pain. Her dog tags had slipped out of her shirt, glinting in the fluorescent light. Bull noticed them and laughed harder. Oh, look at this. G.I. Jane thinks she's special because she played soldier. Probably sat behind a desk the whole time, filing papers. I bet she got hurt tripping over her own feet, the skinny one added. Collecting that government check for being clumsy. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. They had no idea. No idea about the convoy that hit an IED outside Kandahar. No idea about the 4 hours she spent applying pressure to another soldier's wounds while her own leg bled through makeshift bandages. No idea about the Purple Heart and Bronze Star sitting in a box in her closet because looking at them brought back too many memories. Nothing to say now, tough girl? Bull kicked her fallen crutch across the room. Maybe next time you'll remember your place. From the corner booth, a small voice spoke up. Dad, why are they being mean to that lady? A man in his 30s, wearing an old Army Rangers t-shirt, looked at his young son. Then he looked at Sarah on the floor, at her dog tags, at the pain she was trying to hide. Something shifted in his expression. Because they're bullies, son. And bullies are cowards. He stood up, pulling out his phone. Excuse me for a minute. He walked outside, already dialing. Through the window, Sarah could see him talking urgently into the phone, gesturing back at the diner. Inside, Bull and his crew had returned to their table, still laughing and making jokes about cripples and fake soldiers. They ordered food like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just assaulted a veteran in front of a room full of witnesses. Sarah managed to pull herself into a sitting position against the wall. Amy rushed over with a towel for the spilled coffee, whispering apologies. An older man in a Marine Corps cap quietly placed Sarah's crutches within her reach, giving her a small nod before returning to his seat. Sarah checked her watch. 8:47 a.m. She didn't know it yet, but the man outside had made a very specific phone call. And in exactly 1 hour, Murphy's Diner would never be the same. The bikers kept laughing, kept joking, kept acting like they owned the world. They had no idea that Sarah Mitchell wasn't just any veteran. She was Master Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, former member of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Night Stalkers. And the man outside? He had recognized her unit tattoo peeking out from under her sleeve. He had called Fort Hood, just 90 minutes away. He had spoken to someone who knew Sarah, who had flown with her, who owed their life to her quick thinking during a crashed helicopter extraction in 2011. The Black Hawks were already warming up their engines. Sarah sat in a different booth now, ice pressed against her knee. Amy had helped her up and insisted she stay until the police arrived. But Sarah hadn't called the police. She knew it would be her word against 3 bikers, and she'd seen how these things usually played out. Bull and his crew were getting louder, emboldened by the lack of consequences. They harassed Amy every time she walked by, making crude comments about her appearance. They complained about the food, threw napkins on the floor, and acted like they were untouchable. Hey Gimpy. Bull called out. You still here? I thought we made it clear you weren't welcome. Sarah didn't respond. She'd learned a long time ago that engaging with bullies only gave them more ammunition. But her silence seemed to anger Bull more. I'm talking to you. He stood up again, his friends following. You deaf as well as crippled? The man in the ranger's shirt had come back inside with his son. He positioned himself between his child and the bikers, but kept watching Sarah with a knowing look. A few other veterans in the diner, she could spot them by their posture, their alertness, were also paying attention now. It was 9:35 a.m. when the first sound reached them. A distant thrum that made Sarah's heart skip. She knew that sound better than her own heartbeat. The distinctive whoop 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 of rotor blades cutting through air. Bull was too busy intimidating other customers to notice at first. But the sound grew louder, closer. Other people started looking out the windows. The elderly Marine who had helped Sarah earlier stood up straighter, a smile playing at his lips. What the hell is that? The skinny biker asked, finally noticing the noise. Through the large front window they could see it approaching, a black UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter flying low and fast. It circled the diner once, twice, before setting down in the large empty lot across the street. The rotor wash sent dust and debris swirling. Before the rotors had even stopped spinning, the side doors slid open. 6 soldiers in full combat gear jumped out, moving with practiced precision. They weren't carrying weapons. This was civilian territory, but they didn't need them. Their presence alone changed everything. Leading them was a woman in her 40s, silver oak leaves on her collar marking her as a lieutenant colonel. Sarah's breath caught. She knew that walk, that face even after all these years. "Miranda?" she whispered. Lieutenant Colonel Miranda Hayes had been Sarah's co-pilot during some of the hairiest missions in Afghanistan. They'd saved each other's lives more times than either could count. And now she was here, striding across the street with 5 of the toughest night stalkers Sarah had ever served with. The bell above the diner door chimed as they entered. The entire restaurant fell silent. Even Bull and his crew seemed frozen, unsure what was happening. Miranda's eyes swept the room once before landing on Sarah. Her expression hardened as she took in the crutches, the ice pack, the obvious signs of distress. Then her gaze shifted to the 3 bikers. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from years of commanding soldiers in combat. "I understand there's been an incident here involving one of my people." "Your people?" Bull tried to sound tough, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "Look, lady, we don't want any trouble with the military. This is between us and—" "Master Sergeant Sarah Mitchell," Miranda interrupted. "Decorated combat veteran. 3 tours in Afghanistan. 2 Purple Hearts. Bronze Star with Valor. Air Medal with 18 oak leaf clusters." She stepped closer to Bull. "And my friend." The other soldiers spread out, not threatening but definitely present. One of them, a massive staff sergeant named Thompson who Sarah remembered from her last deployment, positioned himself near the biker's table. "She fell," the bald biker said quickly. "We tried to help." "Stop." Miranda's voice cut through the lie like a blade. "We have witnesses. We have video from the security cameras. And we have a room full of veterans who saw exactly what you did." As if on cue, the Marine in the cap stood up. So did the Army Ranger. 2 women in the back booth stood, Air Force by their bearing. An older man near the counter rose slowly, his Navy anchor tattoo visible on his forearm. One by one, every veteran in the diner got to their feet. "You assaulted a disabled veteran," Miranda continued. "You mocked her service. You stole her mobility aids and caused her to fall. In my world, we call that an attack on one of our own. And we don't let attacks on our own go unanswered." Bull's face had gone from red to pale. "Look, we didn't know she was. We were just joking around." "Joking?" Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady despite the pain. "You called me a burden. Said I was faking my injury for government money. You have no idea what I've done, what I've sacrificed, what any of us have sacrificed." She struggled to her feet, Thompson immediately moving to steady her. "I've pulled men out of burning helicopters. I've flown into hot zones under heavy fire to evacuate wounded soldiers. I've held 18-year-old kids in my arms while they died, telling them they were heroes, that their sacrifice mattered." Her voice grew stronger. "And you think because I walk with crutches now, because my body bears the scars of serving my country, that makes me less than you? That gives you the right to assault me?" The skinny biker was edging toward the door, but another night stalker blocked his path. They weren't touching him, weren't threatening him, but the message was clear. Nobody was leaving until this was resolved. Miranda pulled out her phone. "I could call the police. Assault charges, harassment, disturbing the peace. With this many witnesses, you'd be looking at jail time." She paused. "Or we could handle this a different way." What do you mean?" Bull asked. "You're going to apologize to Master Sergeant Mitchell. A real apology, not some mumbled excuse. You're going to pay for her meal and any medical expenses from her fall. And you're going to leave this diner and never come back." "And if we don't?" The bald one tried to sound defiant. Thompson cracked his knuckles. "Then we let the legal system handle it. And trust me, the district attorney is a former JAG officer. She takes attacks on veterans very personally." Bull looked around the room. Every eye was on him. The veterans standing at attention, the other customers watching with a mix of awe and satisfaction. His own friends looking like they wanted to disappear. I'm sorry," he mumbled. "Louder," Miranda commanded. "And look her in the eye when you say it." Bull turned to Sarah, his face burning with humiliation. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done any of that." "Pay the lady," Thompson added. Bull pulled out his wallet with shaking hands, throwing several bills on Sarah's table. It was more than enough for breakfast and a doctor's visit. "Now get out," Miranda said. "And spread the word to your little club. This diner, this town, any place where veterans gather, they're off limits. We protect our own." The 3 bikers practically ran for the door. Through the window, Everyone watched them speed away on their motorcycles, engines roaring but somehow sounding less intimidating than before. The moment they were gone, the tension broke. The standing veterans began to applaud, first slowly, then building to thunderous approval. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, not from pain or fear, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. Protection. Family. Miranda wrapped her in a careful hug. "Why didn't you call me? You know I'm only at Fort Hood. That's practically next door." "I didn't want to be a burden," Sarah admitted quietly. "Hey." Miranda pulled back, looking her in the eye. "You are never a burden. None of us are. We carried each other through hell overseas. We carry each other here too." The other Night Stalkers gathered around, sharing quick war stories, checking on Sarah's injuries, making sure she was really okay. The other veterans in the diner introduced themselves, exchanging unit information and deployment stories. Amy brought out fresh coffee for everyone, refusing payment. "This is incredible," she kept saying. "I've never seen anything like this." The owner emerged from the kitchen where he'd been hiding during the confrontation. He looked ashamed but determined. "Ma'am," he said to Sarah, "I'm sorry I didn't step in. That was cowardly of me. Your meals are free here from now on. All veterans, actually. It's the least I can do." As the excitement died down, Sarah found herself sitting with Miranda and the team, her leg properly elevated, fresh ice provided by Amy. The young boy who had watched everything approached shyly with his father. "Are you really a hero?" he asked Sarah. She smiled, ruffling his hair. "We all are, buddy. Everyone who serves, everyone who stands up for what's right. Even your dad here making that phone call. That was heroic too." The father nodded gratefully. "I served with the 75th Rangers. I knew that tattoo on your arm, Night Stalkers. You guys saved our unit once, back in 2010. Came in under heavy fire when everyone else said it was too dangerous." "That was probably Sarah's crew," Miranda said proudly. "She was lead pilot on most of those impossible extractions." They talked for another hour, sharing stories and catching up. The Black Hawk sat across the street like a guardian, its presence a reminder that some bonds couldn't be broken by time or distance or injury. Finally, Miranda checked her watch. "We should get back. Training mission this afternoon." She squeezed Sarah's shoulder. "You sure you're okay?" "I am now," Sarah said honestly. "Thank you. All of you." "Thank us." Thompson laughed. "Ma'am, you saved half. If you believe no veteran should ever stand alone, comment respect, subscribe and share their story.